We are live. So Ty has his Mike Tyson shirt on today. Show everybody. Hey, awesome.
Is this the Buster Douglas?
I believe so. It's 1988. It's when he became a champion. He was like 20. He was like 20. He was like 22 or 23 at the time. He was pretty young.
Yeah, that's when he knocked out Michael Spinks. No, I was thinking of the downfall of Tyson when he lost to Buster Douglas in Tokyo.
No. I don't know if they put that one in the shirt. They're probably too afraid to do that to him.
Yeah, Mike Tyson horizontal, which some people enjoyed.
That was, so what was your thoughts on this fight? What were your thoughts, Ty?
I mean, it was pretty sort of typical, I think, of what I came in expecting. I didn't think that Pacquiao. I mean, I was rooting for Manny Pacquiao, but realistically, I didn't think he was going to win.
Right.
I just think Mayweather is such a strong defender, and then his reach. I think a lot of people undersold, Floyd Mayweather's reach advantage over Pacquiao, and you could see that all fight long. It just seemed that every time, Manny would come in with a flurry, Mayweather just had that counter punch that just could reach him and just get him good, and that's all it is with Floyd Mayweather, really. He just hangs around, and he just wins, and hate it or love it. I personally hate it, but it works for him.
Well, according to some, the reason that he lost is because Pacquiao didn't report that he had a torn rotator cuff, and now there are class action suits being filed against him that he misrepresented his health going into the fight, and okay, he was going to make $100 million, and apparently he was hurt in training, and that fact probably said, okay, I'll go into this fight less than 100%, hope I can get a cortisone shot. They denied him the cortisone shot, and then he lost the fight, and now people are suing him.
Yeah.
It's just, honestly, this fight is the reason why boxing is a dying sport.
Yeah.
Because people paid $100 to watch it. I was not stupid enough to pay $100, but some people did, and those people who did, in general, said it was boring. I'll watch it tomorrow night when it's rerun on HBO for free and judge for myself. But everybody I know who watched it said it was a bore.
Yeah, you kept waiting. You kept waiting for Pacquiao to come out flying and to unleash especially in 10th, 11th, or 12th round when you knew that he was going to lose by decision if he didn't get a knockout or some sort of knockdown. And I just waited for it. Never happened. So the health thing, it does seem like a real thing, a real issue for him. But I don't know. A lot of angry people after that, and a lot of angry bettors as well. I was smart enough to stay away from it this time around.
Ah, good. I've never bet on boxing. I can't imagine betting on boxing.
No.
Yeah, I try to stay within my comfort zone. Baseball, hockey, sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. I've had friends who they say hockey's crazy to bet, but
Yeah.
because hockey is pretty unpredictable. But I think hockey's kind of predictable. But let's speak of that. Let's get on to our show and discuss that as well. All right. So it is the 8th of May. All right. Here we go. Here we goes. Boy, am I thirsty. Hold on a second. Let me see if usually I have beverages around me, but I've got none today. Give me 1 sec, guys. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like fighting a cold, so give me 1 second. Be right back.
He's going to make a run for some Mexican Coke.
Yeah. All right, I got something right here. All right, we're good.
All right.
Hurt myself.
That's not good.
No, I know this whole. I don't even want to show you what's going on over there. They're redoing this part of the office, and it's just I have to crawl to get into my office, to get my desk at this point. So anyway, here we go. All right, here we go. Hockey World, ready? Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, Tie Day, May 8th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
And I am Ty Anderson of Tie Day.
And I'm Eklund of HockeyBuzz.com, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. That's right, HockeyBuzz.com. How many times can we say it? And this is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock, and today we have another team to put to rest. Mike?
What can I say? I'm a wild man.
Yes, like a blister in the sky, a blister in the sun. Sorry. Yeah. So the Wild are gone, and you know, like we talked about yesterday, if you're the Wild, this is your third year out to Chicago. You've got a great team. I mean, they're putting together an awesome team. We talked like yesterday. They're going to make changes. There's going to be, it's almost just it's completely unfair. Like I think they shouldn't be making changes really. I mean, they've got a great team. Can they compete with the Hawks? I guess not. I guess you have to compete with the Hawks, so you've got to make changes. What are your thoughts, Ty?
I mean, you sort of said it right there. I mean,
Yeah.
with this new format, you have to get through a team like Chicago, and
Yeah.
a lot of people thought that with their offseason, they got Thomas Vanek. They think this is the piece that will finally put them up there, and Vanek did nothing. I mean, you didn't even notice this guy in this series, it seemed, and I mean, he had that one strong pass, I believe. I want to say it was one of the first two games, but besides the point, I mean, he was not the impact player they wanted him to be. They needed him to be like a Patrick Sharp or a Marian Hossa, and he just wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So I think it came back to a lot of these guys, the Parises, the Suitors, a lot of pressure was on these guys to carry Minnesota, and it just wasn't there. Minnesota has a bit of a brighter future than Chicago because there is going to be a dismantling of sorts in the summer with Chicago due to their cap problems. But right now, I mean, you look at it and you say that Minnesota is not up to task of handling Chicago. And what that comes back down to is really depth, and at some point, I think the two teams are going to meet. Minnesota is going to be a stronger team than Chicago, just based on what they're able to do with their prospects and financially. But right now, I mean, Chicago is just rolling. They are the class of the West, I think, and you really can't deny it anymore. I mean, this is now 5 conference finals appearances in 7 years. I mean, which is just unheard of in today's NHL, especially when you look at. They've already been through one sort of cap crunch where they got rid of almost that entire 2010 team. So for this to happen is pretty remarkable, and it just speaks to the talent of that and the talent of that organization, and everyone is trying to be them, and Minnesota's just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I think Minnesota is going to have to make a decision similar to what Washington did last summer. Unfortunately, I don't think the landscape of free agency is the same where they can go out and get an Orpik and a Matt Niskanen in free agency. But I think that the defensive depth needs to be bolstered in Minnesota for them to compete in that division. But, I don't know if they want to spend, $10 million on Cody Franzen and Mike Green, and that'll have the effect that and I don't know if they have that kind of money to make those kind of moves. They do have a lot of depth, a lot of young players who they can maybe make some trades, and there are some defensemen who will be on the market. But I think that's where Minnesota needs to upgrade. I mean, Ryan Suter is one of the best defensemen in the NHL, but I like I said a couple days ago, you can't play him 32 minutes a game in the playoffs and expect the guy to be fresh and to not make mistakes. And he was sort of underwhelming for them this year. You need to let your young guys like Brodin and Dumba play more, and I think maybe you need to bolster the blue line. That being said, in this series, Devin Dubnyk gave up 4 goals in 3 of the games, and you can't take anything away from Devin Dubnyk for what he did in the second half of the season for the Wild. He got them to the playoffs, he got them through the first round, but he looked mortal in the second round against the Hawks, and the Hawks are one of the best teams in the league, no doubt. But either there was just sort of a realization that I'm Devin Dubnyk and maybe I shouldn't be playing this way, or it was the fact that they just met a team that they couldn't match up with, which I think is more the case. So, like Ty said, I think Chicago is going to come back a little bit in the summer. They're probably going to have to trade Patrick Sharp. But knowing Stan Bowman, he'll get something of value for Patrick Sharp that might be able to fit into their situation. And guys like Brandon Saad and Andrew Shaw and Teravainen will step up and take a larger role, and they could conceivably be as good as they are right now. But St. Louis, Minnesota, Nashville, Winnipeg, they're all going to have to step up and to keep pace with the Hawks.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is the only saving grace is the fact that these 2 contracts kick in next year for the Hawks, and they're going to have to do things. They're not going to be able to, they're not going to be able to stay as strong as they are. And if I'm the Wild, I stay the course. I stay the course where they are. And And Dubnik's a UFA. He becomes a really interesting UFA probably because I don't know that it's fair to go out and throw this all at Dubnik, either. But he did give up a lot of goals in this series. He was very good in the first round, obviously getting through St. Louis. So it's but Dubnik's a UFA, and he's one of the more intriguing UFAs because of what he did. But it's just one of those like crazy UFAs because UFA goalies are really, first of all, they're always tricky, right? And goalies are such a product of the systems they play into. Some goalies just fit some systems. And Dubnyk fits that system, and unless you have that system that the Wild have, I would be really it's really risky to take a guy who didn't work anywhere else he was, in lots of different situations.
Well, I mean, they are going to have the room to sign him as a free agent. I mean,
yeah,
it'll cost, but Backstrom has one more year left in his deal. They could buy him out. It's $3.4 million cap hit, so the effect would be negligible.
Right.
Harding is already a UFA. Kemper's making around $1.2 million a year, so there is room for them to sign Dubnyk to a. And I don't think they would even have to sign him to a long-term extension, like 5 or 6 years. It probably would be 2 or 3. It probably would be in the range of $3 to $4 million a year, which is about average for a starting goaltender. If you can get Dubnyk under that kind of contract, then you leave yourself enough room to go out and make the improvements in other areas that they'll need to make. So I think that's the direction that Chuck Fletcher will go.
Well, I think when you look at the inconsistencies or the questions surrounding Devan Dubnyk, I think he's still the most consistent goaltender that Minnesota has had in years now. It seems between Backstrom's health and Harding's health, and Darcy was never really the goalie that I thought they thought they were getting really recent months, years, whatever you want to call it. I think that Dubnyk, while they look at it and say, okay, well maybe he's going to come down to earth, it's still the best thing they've had there. Just in probably years, really. When you look back towards, I think Backstrom's last really great year was 2009.
Right.
So it's been a long time since he's been an upper echelon goalie. So you probably in this market, this weaker free agent market, you have to give the keys to Dubnyk for maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. I don't think you have to give him that 5-year deal because he hasn't. You can't do that with 4 months of strong play in a pretty strong system, I should say, as well. So I think that he will be re-signed there, but I don't think it's going to be anything out of their ballpark, really. And because I think he at the same time realized that this is a good situation for him. This is a guy that last year was not even one of the Black Aces for Montreal.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy to think the dips and turns his career has taken. And I think he knows that this is a good place for him.
Yeah, he's played on 4 teams in the last 2 seasons, so I think he's found a home there. I think he will be reasonable. I think the Wild will be reasonable, and I think he realizes that this is probably his best chance to have long-term success. So why not be, conservative and get a shorter-term deal for good money, prove himself, and then go forward.
I guess it just depends, on who's out there. Like, I look at a team like San Jose, and San Jose they need a goalie, right? And we've talked about before they're going to have a new coach. I keep hearing Peter DeBoer's name mentioned with them. I mean, they're going to get it. They're going to get a new coach. That changes things, obviously. But the other thing that changes, the other way you can change your team is through the goalie, right? And although I'm a Niemi fan, does Dubnyk put San Jose into the playoffs? It's quite possible he does. If he was there this year, the Sharks, depends on how you see the Sharks. The Sharks don't play the same system at all that the Wild play. They're a lot more freewheeling. So maybe that's a little closer to Edmonton's system where Dubnyk, struggled to a degree. Although I always thought he was a good goalie. He was just with a horrible system, So
I get the impression that Niemi is not going back to San Jose. At least that's been the indications out of San Jose, and that to my mind, Alex Stalock is not. If he was a legitimate number 1 goaltender, he would have stolen that job away from Niemi over the last 2 seasons when it was available to him. So, I mean, they could be in the market for. And then this is the thing: there are a number of number 2 goaltenders in situations right now who may be ready to assume that number one role in other NHL venues, like Cam Talbot with the Rangers, like Vasilevsky with Tampa Bay, like Jonathan Bernier if the Leafs decide to trade him. So, I mean, I think there are options out there, but I don't think there are a lot of options. So,
No.
Antti Niemi is going to get a job next year somewhere as a number one goaltender.
No, and he's a good. I'm a Niemi fan. I am. I've been long been a Niemi fan, and I think on certain teams, I actually think in Edmonton he would be a great fit. I really do, because he's the kind of goalie. One of the things I've always loved about Niemi, and he shares this to a degree with Rask, I would say, and it's a bit of a Finnish thing, but there's other goalies that do this as well. Is Niemi is never afraid to freeze the puck. He'll always hold on to anything, and he's especially good at that when when the team is losing momentum. Niemi will freeze everything every 5 seconds. And that's their way of getting momentum back. I think they're taught this in Finland because a lot of Finnish goalies do this. If your team has the momentum, keep the puck going. But if your team doesn't, freeze it. And Niemi's really good at that, which is something that a team like Edmonton could use. That team gets caught running around a lot in their own end. So I could see Niemi fitting in where they're pretty well. Now speaking of, before we get into Montreal and Tampa, we got to deal with these with what's happening with Mike Babcock today. Because I wrote yesterday. We didn't get to it on the podcast, which I'm kind of mad at. We didn't. But yesterday I wrote in my first paragraph that Babcock was going to be permitted to talk to other teams, and today it was confirmed. Mackenzie went out and confirmed it. That as of 12 noon today Eastern time, which would have been an hour and 23 minutes ago, as we're speaking right now, Babcock is allowed officially to talk to other teams. And along with this, comes out the news that he turned down 2 offers the Red Wings put forth in the last week. Helene St. James reporting that, basically saying he wants to see what's out there, which is sort of what we expected. And I do think he feels this need to push the envelope for coaches in the future. And now, also the Red Wings want this done in like the next 2 weeks. The Red Wings are pushing this. They really want to get this solved because they don't want to go into, the draft not knowing who their coach is. That's the problem with Babcock's contract ending July 1st, and it was always the problem. And it's always why I felt like he would be talking to teams before July 1st because, the quicker the better. They really, they want to get their AHL guy up there. He seems like the obvious choice that they're going to go with. And so here we have Babcock now officially a free agent talking to teams. And, a lot of people speculating that Edmonton might be at the top of that list. I'm not hearing it's the top of the list. I'm not hearing it's not. I'm hearing the list. There really is no top of the list yet at this point that Babcock's listening to everybody. And I've heard he's going to talk to Toronto as well. Maybe, out of respect for Shanahan. And Shanahan obviously has to call and talk to him. If Babcock's available and you don't have a coach, you have to call. That's how it goes. Whether or not you're going to get him or not is another question altogether. But
right. And that's where we're standing here. I mean, all the cards are in Babcock's hand. I mean, he can pick and choose where he wants to go. Now, I think he's going to get the money wherever he goes. I think he'll get it from Ed Schneider in Philadelphia. I think he'll get it from Pagula in Buffalo. He'll get it from Daryl Cates in Edmonton. He'll get it from MLS and in Toronto. It's a question of what situation is best for him.
Right.
And the thing is, this does not preclude teams that have coaches already. And I know that we've mentioned Pittsburgh before, and
right.
I'm sure St. Louis is out there with Hitchcock sort of in limbo.
And Boston.
And Boston, and even I know that Doug McLean from Sportsnet last week said that if Chicago did not win the Cup, that Bowman and Quenneville don't get along very well, and he could see if Babcock was out there that Babcock could go to Chicago. I mean, there's so many scenarios out there, and I even heard someone today say that if Boudreau doesn't get to the final, that he could go back to Anaheim. So there are so many possibilities in Montreal as well. So, I think Detroit is dreaming if they think that this scenario is going to be wrapped up by the end of May, because I don't think everybody who is interested in Babcock is going to be available to talk to him.
Oh, I disagree. I think this will get wrapped up very quickly. I do because this is a lot like a UFA, who this is July. So basically, it's July 1st right now for Mike Babcock, and a UFA like Mike Babcock doesn't stick around very long. Teams are going to go out there, and And I don't think he's going to. I think, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and what he wants is intriguing. And I want to see, Ty, if this would work in Boston or, I think it would work in Philly. And there's some I don't know that it would work in Toronto. He wants to have some say in the player personnel decisions. But he doesn't really want to be the GM, I was told. He doesn't want to do the contracts. He doesn't want to do that kind of stuff. He wants to, so, maybe associate GM. But I've heard that there are a few teams, and I think Philly's one of them, that might offer him the, president/coach job, which is something that we've never seen before in the NHL. Which essentially would enable the coach to fire the GM. But if things were to stick to task, if he's the president and the coach, and they have, in Boston, you got Neely there right now. I think. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, Ty?
I mean, I just think it's hard. I think it's hard in this day and age to do both. To fill both jobs to the best of your ability. I mean, I think the last guy that I can really think of that did this was Jacques Martin down with the Panthers, and that was a disaster. I just think the workload is way too much in this day and age in terms of scouting and drafting. You have to go on. You see GMs go on these crazy trips to the middle of nowhere, Canada, to scout the 16-year-old that thinks going to be great in 2 years. And there's not enough time in the day to be a coach and a GM or a president for that matter. And I just think it's so just unlikely. I know that he could get it from somebody, but I don't know if it's the best move for him. I mean, he's just such a great coach, and maybe you want to focus on being that great coach. And it's I know that you always want more power and you want to extend yourself out in certain areas, but I don't think it's a great idea in this day and age. I mean, Jacques Martin in Florida. Mike Milbury with the Islanders. I mean, what's the last success story of a guy that had a front office job and the head coaching job? I just don't think it exists anymore.
Well, I mean, I was gonna point out, and this is going back a ways. Scotty Bowman won 4 straight Stanley Cups in Montreal, came to Buffalo as the czar, as general manager and coach, and was an unmitigated disaster in Buffalo. He was not a good general manager, still one of the best coaches ever, and as part of a larger group in Pittsburgh and in Detroit, and he had success, but not when he was the man.
Right.
Mike Keenan was a fantastic coach, but whenever he went someplace and became the boss, became GM and coach, he had a lot less success than he did as just a coach.
Oh, he was terrible. The problem with the coach, and Keenan is the perfect example. You're right. The problem with coach and GM was what Keenan did. Coaches think in terms of short term. GMs think in terms of long term.
Right.
So that's always the issue. So when Keenan as a GM made several short term deals and decimated the St. Louis Blues. I mean, I've read stories about how there are some really well written stories about what Keenan did to the Blues. What was there before he got there, what was there when he left. And I think that's the issue. But president is such a vague title in the NHL. Like, I don't know. It's not. I mean, you can give a guy a presidency, and therefore I think pay him more money. Justify paying him more money, but really not give him that much more responsibility. Like, I don't know that he's not going to suddenly be, doing the taxes or something like that. He's just going to be, he's the president, right? So.
Well, I think the title is sort of secondary. I really do. Like in the Toronto scenario, Shanahan is the boss. You've got right now Kyle Dubas and Mark Hunter. Mark Hunter is the director of player personnel. Kyle Dubas and Brandon Prittimer, assistant general managers. You could bring in Babcock as head coach and vice president of hockey operations, and that would just be a title. And they could say you're going to have a direction, a stake in the decision making of the team going forward, but it's still going to be the group that's there right now. I don't know about the dynamic in Philadelphia where you have Hextall as a new general manager. I believe Holmgren is still the team president. Whether you're going to bring in Babcock and supplant Holmgren as the team president, or put Hextall in a situation where his job is tenuous because you bring in Babcock. I mean, I don't know if that works. I think it works in Edmonton because you got all the people from Hockey Canada who he has dealt with Chiarelli and with Nicholson, where there would be a comfort level there in the sense that he could have an input. He knows he'll have an input because he knows these people, but he doesn't have to have a title. And if he has to have a title of general manager, they can just fire Craig McTavish and that's accomplished. But I don't think he really needs that title to have input there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Ty?
I mean, I just look at it, and it's tough for me to because the title is the trickiest part.
Right.
If you hire him as a head coach / vice president of hockey operations, doesn't that put him on par with a general manager per se? You know, like in terms of like what their day-to-day functions are, what their power is, and then if it hits the fan, what happens? You know, it gets really ugly really quickly, and I think so. That's why I think I think he'd be a great fit in a Boston or a Philadelphia, but I don't think it would work based on the titles. You know, based on if you hire him in Boston as the head coach and let's just say the vice president of hockey operations. Okay, does that mean that Don Sweeney, who is many believe will be the GM, does that mean he reports to Babcock as well? Because that's just very confusing, I think, for everybody. So I mean it has to work, and I think it has to work in a city like in Edmonton, where you have Chiarelli as the president of hockey operations and the GM, where it's almost like he could be the 1B to Chiarelli. That's where it makes sense, but. I mean, it's tough because we put so much emphasis on the title, and so will Babcock. He'll say, well, "Wait a minute, I'm the VP, or I'm this, I'm that."
Right.
So it can get tricky and messy really quickly, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I'm always suspicious of a coach having too much input into the players simply because I think their viewpoint is sort of skewed. I know that Pat Quinn was general manager and coach with Toronto.
It's probably the last one who did it really well when you think about it.
Yeah, and the thing was, I mean, he did it okay, but there were certain players. He liked veteran players. He would bring in guys at the end of their career who were past their prime, like Phil Housley and Calle Johansson, and at the cost of the young guys that he drafted. I think it wrecked things in a way. And I think that there needs to be that division of authority. And I respect Babcock, but we've heard the stories already that he was the driving force behind Detroit signing Stephen Weiss, and Stephen Weiss has not been a success in Detroit. So, and not to tar him with that brush because it's one player, but
everybody makes.
If that's an indication of his talent evaluation in terms of having input in an organization's decision making, then I'm a little bit scared, but I think he's still going to get that input because he is Mike Babcock.
Well, he had a lot of input on putting Team Canada together, from everything I've heard, and that's they were very much working together, Yzerman and Babcock. So, which made sense in a short-term tournament. Your coach needs to have a lot of input, I would think, because there you're looking at this is just who do you need to win right now. That the coach should be the guy picking the team basically. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It does feel like Babcock's not going back to Detroit, though. I mean, he's turned down a couple offers here. It really feels as if that's a done deal. And I've heard, the contract I heard was range was going to be like 5 years, $38 million. That's a crazy contract for a coach. I mean, if you have a contract like that, think about it. You can't fire a coach that you're paying $7.5 million a year to.
Yeah, I think the years are off on that. The money might be right, but I think that's got to be 6 years. I haven't heard anybody, and maybe with multiple teams interested, the price will get driven up. But I haven't heard anybody offering or the speculation that Babcock was going to get more than $6 million. It's supposedly.
I think we have a bet there, Mike. I think we got a bet there. I'll go the over on $6 million. Definitely.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, where do you think, Ty? Where do you think he ends up?
Money or
money-wise? Money-wise, per year.
I mean, I'll take 6 even.
6 even? All right, so you got 6.
So like if it's 5.999, I win.
Yeah.
It's it.
I can't. I don't know. I mean, because it's tough because you do run the risk of if it doesn't work out, which I know it's unlikely to think about just because how strong of a coach he is and his resume speaks for itself. But that's a lot of money for a team to eat, and that's just tough for me to imagine.
Right. And you're a GM hiring a guy. You're signing a coach with that kind of money. As a GM, you're screwing yourself because there's no question that you are going to go before the coach goes. Like they're gonna because they have to make a change. They're not gonna fire Babcock. They're gonna consider the problems are with the players that are being put on the ice, which is the GM's job, right? So
that's refreshing.
Well, yeah.
Because God
it should
knows
be like that more often, right? But this is the case. So I think that in this case, no one's gonna. I mean, can you imagine when Babcock struggles? Say he goes to Edmonton, he's not. Even with Babcock, even with Connor McDavid, how good is Edmonton really this year? Like you can see. I mean, Edmonton's. Are they a playoff team out west this coming year? I don't think so. I mean, it's just.
It depends on what other moves they make besides getting McDavid. They need to improve their defense.
Right.
They need to get a goaltender. They need to.
They have a lot of work to do there. So, I mean, he could struggle there for a couple of years, and then you can't do anything. You're stuck with Mike Babcock, who has only won one playoff series in the last 4 years. So, I mean, there's some things about him that are. Curious. I mean, you could say Detroit's been rebuilding, and you can even say, like Kevin has said, that it's amazing that he was even in the playoffs in the last 4 years with the Red Wings team that he's had. So, but he's won as many playoff series as Ken Hitchcock's won over the last 4 years. So that's that's the reality of the whole situation. So, and Hitchcock everybody feels like is as good as gone. So,
but that's the only hope for teams like Buffalo, Edmonton, and Toronto. Who I think if he goes there, the expectation for at least 2 years is we're not going to win anything because we're still a work in progress. Toronto even more so. I think it would be 3 years, maybe 4 years. I don't think he's going to Toronto because I think it's too much time to wait. I think it's too much tarnishing of his legacy if they miss the playoffs for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But he'll have time in Buffalo and Edmonton. They're building. They got young building blocks. If he goes to St. Louis or he goes to Boston or if he goes to even Philadelphia, who missed the playoffs but have a lot of talent, he's going to be expected to win right away.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately the best landing spot for him is Edmonton. I know we don't on the top of the list per se, but I just think that with McDavid, with Nugent Hopkins, with Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, I mean you have Team Canada. You have your young guns of Team Canada. He can mold them how he wants, and think that's a huge thing for him.
Good point.
The only sort of spanner in the works on that situation is the fact that apparently the reports yesterday said that Edmonton is talking to McLellan. Now they can talk to both Babcock and McLellan at the same time.
Yeah, they're going to talk to everybody.
And now that Babcock is available, now that he may jump to the front of the list, but if
he wants to go there, that's the question. I just don't know. I mean, and you bring up some good reasons why I would go there, Ty. But there's also, it is Edmonton again. He's going to spend the next, several years in Edmonton. It depends what kind of challenge he wants. Like, I wouldn't think he would be into the idea of Chicago. Like, to me, that's kind of it's almost too easy. Like, I think Babcock wants to go someplace where he can actually coach. Chicago really runs themselves.
St. Louis could be intriguing.
St. Louis makes sense because that's a team that that has been there and has struggled to get over the top, but they have all the talent. Philadelphia's got talent too, a similar way there, a similar situation. Those are teams that where Buffalo and Edmonton, they're a different, totally different can of worms. For obviously similar reasons. So I don't know. I mean that. We'll see, but it's going to go down quickly. I really think it's going to go down quickly. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's within a week that we see this. Just because, I mean, how much do you have to interview Dave? How much do you have to interview Mike Babcock? It's like, who Mike Babcock is. It's like you bring him in. It really comes down to like, okay, everybody's going to talk to him within the next 4 or 5 days. You don't even have to fly. You don't even have to necessarily fly him in. You just bring him up on Skype and talk to him. And then work out a price and see where he's at. I mean, they're going to know where he's at really quickly here.
Well, according to reports, he's heading over to the World Championships probably in the next couple of days. Which most or some of the general managers in the league are over there doing scouting, so that might actually hasten the process. But
precisely
for those who aren't there, they have to talk to him now or in the next couple of days.
Wow. I just got another text from something very interesting too. another coach. I'm sorry about that. Another coach that might be getting hired pretty soon. But I'll get to that. Maybe see if I can talk about that later. Let's get into. So Carey Price now is 6-0 in elimination games since last year's Olympics. He is not. You've not been able to eliminate Carey Price at this point. Yeah, and last night, the Canadiens, you got to give them credit. They came out, and this very easily could have been a demoralized team, and they really came out and just picked up where they left off in Game 3. But they got some goals behind Bishop, and they chased Bishop, which is really an interesting turn of events. I thought, Ty, is this series still in doubt, or possibly, or what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, because I just think that I watched the Lightning last night, and I think when Markov scored that first goal, I've never seen a goaltender look so utterly defeated from that point on as Ben Bishop did. He just looked disengaged. He didn't look he just looked like that was it for him. He realized that this was not going to be his night.
Right.
And his body language showed. I think the rest of Tampa Bay Lightning, their body language showed that they just were not ready for the desperation of the Canadiens. So, I think Montreal will make it interesting. I feel like they'll win Game 5 just at the Bell Center at home. I just think that's such an energetic building, especially on a Saturday night. I mean,
yeah, it's Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, it's going to be bumping in there, and I think they'll extend it then. And then that's when I start to have my doubts. That's when doubts start creep in my head as to whether or not Tampa Bay can close it out. But I do think that Tampa Bay is going to win this series still. I think last night, it's fun to talk about that 6-2 final, but I just don't think that Montreal has the firepower. If this ends up back in Tampa for a Game 6, I just think that the Bolts will realize what they have at hand. And I think Stamkos said it best last night. He said, "We got what we deserved. We had this coming."
Right.
You learn from that lesson. You apply it in the next game or the Game 6, and it's all in the past. But yeah, Carey Price is quite a story. There's no doubt about that. But I just thought that this last night was all about Ben Bishop, really, and how he sort of just melted and didn't look ready for what was thrown his way.
Well, the whole team didn't look ready. I mean, Bishop let in 3 goals on 14 shots.
Yeah.
And to your point, Ty, he looked deflated when Markov.
They looked tired. Tampa looked tired. Didn't they look tired? They looked like a tired team to me.
Yeah, they did. And as we said yesterday, everything happened right for Montreal. They did everything that they had to do, and they still lost Game 3 on that last second goal. Last night, they get I think they had the motivation. I think that, Tampa was hoping that they would come out, get the lead, and then panic would set in on Montreal. Montreal takes a 2-0 lead, and I think you felt the hope evaporate in that arena. And anytime that Tampa tried to respond, Montreal got themselves a goal and put them even further behind the 8 ball, and then they pulled Bishop and put in Vasilevsky. One thing that I think is interesting is, again, Stamkos broke out in that game 2 in Montreal with that goal on Price. He hasn't had a shot on goal. He didn't have a shot on goal in Games 3 or 4. And they, like Rick Nash in New York, you need Steven Stamkos to produce for this team to win. When he produced, they won 6-2. They scored 6 goals in Montreal. When he didn't get a shot on goal, they barely won Game 3 and they lost Game 4. They need Steven Stamkos to produce.
Yeah,
totally agree. Here's the intense. This is a great GIF. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but this the John Cooper GIF here. This is intensity at its finest. Looking every bit, like Michael Keaton from Batman. This is just like look at that snarl. It's like obviously staring down the referee after. I love it. Awesome. For such a nice guy,
Yeah, truly one of the game's nice guys. It blows my mind he didn't win the Jack Adams last year, and I'm still mad about it. But
yeah,
I think this is his big test as a coach. I mean, he has to get by the Canadiens. He has to get by Carey Price, and I mean that's what it's going to come back to. But I mean, I don't know. I still think that Tampa Bay, they did look a little bit fatigued last night. They maybe looked a bit overwhelmed by the challenge of eliminating a team like Montreal in Tampa Bay. But I do have confidence in his ability as a coach and with that team, their leadership. and their experience they have from past teams, like the Rangers, like they have Strawman and Boyle, two guys that were both part of deep runs with New York to battle through this. So I think they have the right pieces in place, and you're waiting for Stamkos to go off. He had that one goal, but you're just waiting for that 2-goal, 4-point night, whatever it's going to be, and I think it's coming soon.
Oh yeah, it's got to be there. I agree, and I mean, fortunately, they have so much depth right now, and they've got such great scoring from all over the place. I find it hard to imagine Tampa goes beyond 6, but this Montreal team always surprises me. Whenever they're counted out is when they definitely are dangerous when they're counted out. It's always been the case. When people don't pick and make the playoffs.
Well, the guys that were criticized after Game 3 for not showing up in the series all produced last night. Pacioretty, Subban, Plekanec was winning faceoffs like crazy, and they got a great game out of Price. But Price has been consistent. They just need their big guys to produce, and if they don't produce, I don't think they're as deep as a team like Tampa,
right.
And the depth of Tampa will then overrule them. But if Pacioretty and Subban and Markov produce, then they have a chance.
Oh, for sure. And
if there's one player that Montreal can focus on and expose, especially in Game 5 in their own building, I think it's Matt Carle. I don't think he's had the strongest series. He is getting outworked by the speedier talents of Montreal, and I think Braden Coburn is another guy that if Montreal has their say and they've utilized the last change to the advantage, they can expose these guys and extend it to 6.
Yeah, I agree. Both defensemen are both guys are weak defensively right now. They definitely are, and Carl especially. I agree. Coburn's been playing very well. Coburn is a streaky player though, and can get thrown off his game. But definitely, I couldn't agree more. It's a good point. It's a really good point. Someone sent me this GIF too about this game before we move on. This is hilarious too. Did you see the dancing spaceman? Come on now.
Oh yes.
This is awesome. And Carey Price trying not to laugh at this guy. I mean, that's just who has a spaceman uniform, a spaceman suit that they wear to a hockey game in Tampa.
Well, you are kind of close to Cape Canaveral, right?
That's true, I guess. It's a good point. Excellent.
Houston, we have a problem.
Maybe it's an actual spaceman.
Could
All
be.
right. Could be for sure. All right, so tonight we have a couple of elimination games on hand again, as elimination weekend heads in now. So we have one elimination game tonight. Sorry about that. We only have one. Let's start with the non-elimination game.
The city of Calgary was raising up in horror.
Right. I apologize. Does Calgary now? We saw the incredible comeback in Game 3. What do you think, Mike? Does Calgary win this one tonight?
I put nothing past the Calgary Flames.
Right.
I really do. I thought the series was going to go 6, and I think that if it does go 6, this is the best chance for it to go 6, which means Calgary evens up the series, and then Anaheim wins the last 2. I don't think there's any pressure on Anaheim right now. I think all the pressure is still on Calgary. They've gotten 2 great goaltending performances out of Kari Ramo in a row, and the crowd will be behind them. I give them a better than 50-50 chance of winning tonight. I still think Anaheim's going to eventually win the series, so my heart will go with Calgary tonight.
What do you think, Ty?
I have to go with Calgary too. I mean, if there's one thing I love about the postseason, it's that we get to watch players for extended periods of time, get to know who they are as athletes and what their style is. More than just an occasional game that's on NBC or Game Center Live. And I gotta say, Johnny Gaudreau is one of the most electrifying players to watch in hockey right now. He is just so talented. He has such heart and such drive with each rush up ice, and I just think that's so fun to watch. And I think game 3 was a perfect example of that. He is the straw that stirs their drink, and I think that you'll see a big game for him tonight. And I honestly think that they'll tie it up. Whether that translates to a win in Game 5, 6, or 7. I really don't know, but I just think that I watch this team. This is a Flames team that they thrive on emotion and they thrive on what their crowd can bring to them, and I think that's such a big factor this time of year, and that's why I like them tonight. And like Mike, I honestly can't put anything past this team at this point. Honestly, they've just surprised me in so many different ways now that I feel stupid saying no, they're not going to show up.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, and even though Anaheim has been really almost played flawless hockey in the postseason, I mean, really, pretty much. I mean, that last game they played they really played a great game as well, even though they lost. I mean, you can't blame them for losing. I agree with you with Gaudreau 100%. I mean, to think about a Team USA Olympic power play in the future that has Gaudreau and Patrick Kane on it is pretty awesome. I mean, that's like, these are two guys that, one's left-handed, one's right-handed. Put them down in the half boards and just call it a day. I mean, those guys they're going to be picking corners off left and right. I mean, it's insane. I mean, that Gaudreau goal was a Patrick Kane goal through and through. To me, that was just like where he put it, how he did it. His timing on the whole thing. He's always been that kind of player. For Team USA, was that kind of player too. He's fantastic.
The thing that I appreciate the most out of Hartley, who rightly got nominated for the Jack Adams yesterday, is he is getting the most out of talent that has been in other places and didn't play very well. I mean, Ty,
Yeah.
you know Joe Colburn, former Boston Bruins first-round pick. Didn't really do a lot in the Bruins organization, was part of the Thomas Caberlet deal, went to Toronto, had a couple opportunities with the Leafs, never did anything. They traded him for a fourth-round draft pick rather than losing him to waivers. He goes back home to Calgary, he plays for Hartley, and he's out there, and he is, hustling. He is hitting, and he was never a hitter. He's a big kid, but he was never never a tough player, and he's flying all over the place. He's hitting. He is playing defensive hockey. He is going to the front of the net. He's doing everything that he needs to do to be a success in the league, and he is doing it. And it's because he's playing in his hometown, and because Hartley is pushing the right buttons and saying, if you want to stay in the league, this is what you have to do, and he's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Calgary is the ultimate island of misfit toys in terms of undrafted players and busts in other cities that are now thriving there. I mean, Kyrie Ramo was out of the league for how many years? The NHL, and he comes back, and now he has this nice role here in the second round of the playoffs where he can be a great story.
Yeah.
So I think that Hartley, that comes back to Hartley, and I think he is a coach that gets the most out of his players. And there are a few coaches in this league that can really do that on a consistent basis, and he's getting that right now. And I think that just speaks to his ability to get these guys going, get them motivated, and certainly deserving of that Jack Adams nomination.
Yeah, I agree, and you really saw it after the non-goal. Like after the non-goal thing, where that team could have folded. Hartley could have, and Hartley had to get that young team focused in again, in a real quick way under really horrible circumstances, and he did. Also, there's news today that Calgary's Flames defenseman. Remember, Mark Giordano is not playing, and this is their best player, arguably for most of the year. He doesn't quite rule out the possibility of returning. He's skating with them right now. He could return in this series even if it goes long. What a boost that would be for this team. That would be such a psychological boost for the Flames.
Yeah, I've heard those reports, and they've sort of been slightly shot down a bit, saying that if they made the conference final or if they made the final. I mean, I don't think that they're going to risk him Giordano coming back from the injury that he had. I mean, it would be great. It would be awesome if it happened, but I have a feeling that this is sort of like a little gamesmanship where maybe it gets into Anaheim's head, like, okay, Giordano is going to come back and that's going to have an impact on the series, and we better maybe put a little more pressure on themselves. I would be really shocked if that happened, but stranger things have happened. We didn't expect Patrick Kane to come back until the conference final, and he played the first game of the playoffs.
Right. I mean, and this is a little bit different kind of injury, but still, he's shooting pucks harder and harder every day. He hasn't quite been in contact within contact yet, but I don't know. Even if I would love to see him come back. And maybe for a Game 7 or something like that. It probably wouldn't be till then. But yeah, you're right in all likelihood. The other game tonight is an elimination game, and that would be the Rangers and Caps, and this is I wonder. I really wonder whether the Rangers have enough to continue this series. The Caps just seem like such a confident team to me. And even though these are all one-goal games, it's just there's a cockiness about Washington that we haven't seen before, and a real sort of not a sense of desperation yet. I didn't get I'm not getting a big enough sense of desperation out of the Rangers at this point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Ty, any thoughts on that?
No, it's true. I mean, I look at this and I think that a lot of these players on the Caps, they smell blood right now. You know,
Yeah.
this is going to be the time of year where they realize that this might be their best shot at getting the Stanley Cup. This might be Ovechkin's, this is his big chance to get it finally after all these years. And I think they realize that. I think a guy like Orpik, a signing that I admittedly questioned because I thought it was way too much money for what he was at his age. I think he's been huge, and he's such a voice in that room he's been there before. And I think that's helping them tremendously right now. But I think this comes back to Braden Holtby. I mean, Braden Holtby has had an unbelievable season, a Vezina caliber season, in my opinion, and he's rolled with that into the postseason. So for me, I think I have always been wondering where the Rangers' desperation has been. From a guy like Marty St. Louis to Rick Nash. I mean, I've questioned what's going on with these players. But I just think that it's coming back to Braden Holtby and the Caps and their defensive game. It's strong. It's really frustrating the Rangers right now, and you're seeing that they're having to work even harder for their goals. And they're not a team that necessarily can score 4 or 5 with ease. They have to work for their goals, and they're having to work even harder right now. And it's just not happening. And I think frustration is setting in on their behalf.
It feels like it, and it feels like that. Lundqvist is doing everything he can do. And it's not him. He's playing really well.
Well, it's funny because Lundqvist made comments after Game 4, and I some of the outlets picked up on it that, and I'm paraphrasing that, I'm doing everything that I can basically, and then sort of stopped at that point. And not that there's a blame game going on here, but I think that right now the focus is not on Lundqvist. He's not letting in bad goals. It's the fact that Rick Nash has 1 goal in now 9 playoff games, and he scored. He was one of the best scorers in the league. They need Kreider to head to the net. They need Nash to go to the front of the net. They haven't been doing that in the playoffs so far. They've been a team that's been on the periphery, and that's not how the Rangers are going to score goals. They need to, get into the scoring areas. They need to, get shots from the point, screen Holtby because you can't stop what you can't see, deflect the puck. But the problem is that Washington under Trotz is playing a defensive system, and he's got the defenders. He's got guys like Orpik and Niskanen and Carlson and Alzner and Green who clear the front of the net and are letting Holtby see the shots. And if Holtby sees it the way he's playing right now, he's going to stop it. So I think the Rangers will win this game. I think they'll get back in the series. It'll probably be like all the other games, a 1-goal game, 2-1, maybe an empty netter. I mean, the challenge is if they win tonight is going back Game 6 in Washington, if they can win that game and force a Game 7. And right now, I don't know. But, I mean, I think the desperation will be there tonight because there is no tomorrow if they lose.
Yeah, but I just don't know what they have in the tank. I mean, it just doesn't seem like they got it in the tank right now. I don't know. They're just missing. I mean, if Nash isn't going to score, it just kills them. I mean, there's 40 goals. That's. If you get one goal from Nash in this series, they win 1 more game. These games are so close. It's just.
I can't believe that the absence of Matt Zuccarello means this much, but apparently it does because.
No question, it definitely does.
By him being out, everybody moves up 1 space, and now you're expecting guys like Tanner Glass and James Shepard and Jesper Fast to contribute more, and maybe there's nothing more that they can contribute. And then if that's the case, then more of the weight goes on Nash and St. Louis and their top players to score goals. And I think right now, obviously, they're not getting a lot out of St. Louis. They're not getting hardly anything out of Nash.
Yeah.
Tonight is when they need it, or they're going to be on the golf course pretty soon.
No, for sure.
Well, I think the big thing, too, you have to remember here is that for a lot of these Rangers, they've played a lot of hockey these past 2 years. Between the Olympics, last year the Cup run, and this year, I mean, this is a lot of hockey for a guy like Nash. And even Lundqvist, I know he was injured for a while there, so he did have some time off, but, I mean, this is a lot of hockey. And so at the same time, it's maybe there just isn't anything left from the tank. And that's a real thing that I think that we have to consider to a degree because it does happen to certain teams. And I know everyone's tired this time of year, but a team that made it to the Stanley Cup last year, they lost, and I believe it was double or I want to say it was double OT last year in Game 5. I mean, they had a lot of overtime games on the way there. I mean, this is a lot of hockey, in the past 18 months, whatever it is, So That is something to consider as well. But yeah, you've been waiting for this moment. You've been waiting for a Nash or a St. Louis to take over a game. It just hasn't happened yet.
It really hasn't. Well, finally, and the last thing is I want to congratulate Bob McKenzie on being the first hockey person that I know, hockey writer at least, to reach 1 million followers on Twitter. How about that? So, and I would like to know, I would like Bob to, if he's watching, to remember that I, at one point, had more followers than you and told people to follow you, and I did. And during the Olympics, I did this, and and he was like, "Wow, thanks a lot, I appreciate it." So now that you have more followers than me, maybe you'd pay me. Anyway, guys, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you Monday.